Hello, welcome back to another video. I've just returned home from Morocco where I've been taking part in the Atlas Mountain Race. So in this video I thought I'd do a bit of a race report, show some of the videos that I took along the way and follow the race tracker and replay what happened. And hopefully I can give you a bit of an insight into what happened during the race. So let's head over to, let's start with RideWithGPS. This is the route. 810 miles was the route, starting in Marrakesh, finishing in Azuria, and we crossed the Atlas and the anti-Atlas mountains. And we'll head over to map progress and start running the tracker in a second. But first, as you may know by now, all my Atlas Mountain Race coverage is supported by Enduro bearings. So I've been using Enduro bearings for a number of years now. And I had them on my bike. If you saw my bike check video the other day, you would know that I was running the XD15 ceramic hybrid bearings. They do a range of stuff, a lot of pivot bearings for full suspension bikes. The stainless steel max hit bearings, I'm running these on my road bike, and I've been running them on my Mason Raw mountain bike for a couple of years. Essentially, they are super durable, nice fast rolling bearings, a really good upgrade for your bike. And I'd encourage you to take a look at Enduro bearings. If you want a bit more techie detail, as I said, check out the bike check video. It's amazing how much detail you can talk about bearings. They're not all made the same as it happens. Big shout out to Enduro bearings. Check those guys out. And now let's get back on to the race report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun it in around 10 minutes or so, and just add in my sort of comments. It's going to be based around the top 15. So basically, I've essentially I've highlighted the top 15 overall, plus the second and third place women. You can just got to see how it works. Bear in mind that there are scratches. So the riders who scratch are shown with a line through them, but they wouldn't necessarily have been scratched all the way through the race. It just shows them like that from the start. Start in Marrakesh, and the rollout is pretty neutral. I say neutral. It's a fast neutral race, neutral start. So basically what that looks like in terms of riding is everyone in one big group, pretending to go easy, but actually basically smashing the crap out of each other, which is kind of a common theme now on the Atlas Mountain Race. So you can see here we start at 6 p.m. So the sun is starting to go down. It's still daylight. But yeah, everyone's close together, basically trying not to get knocked off by some of the more or the less confident people riding in groups. And some people go hard off the front, as always happens. We have a police escort out of the city. So actually the the Moroccan police, they're very good with the race. Although it's kind of self-supported and self-sufficient, there's always some kind of police presence on sort of the major junctions or when the route hits major roads. They do a very, very good job of just overseeing the riders, and you're kind of there out by yourself, but you do just know that there is there is someone looking out for you, which is quite nice. And obviously 250, 300 riders starting out of Marrakesh, one of the biggest cities in Morocco. There's traffic, there's chaos, and the police just close the roads off, and we can get out the first 50k in that big group. And the race is kind of like neutralized. You can see, if we go over to RideWithGPS, let me just zoom in a little bit. I'll refer to RideWithGPS throughout this. Obviously, they do support me a bit, but I've been using RideWithGPS since basically the start of my bikepacking, sort of 2012, 2013. You can see on the bottom here, so it's the first 50 miles or so, is pretty much flat. It's very gradually uphill, but you'd hardly notice it. You can see again, as always, the solid red line is tarmac, and then the dashed lines here, that just denotes off-road. So you can see it's fairly kind of, it's pretty much tarmac the first 50 miles. And then the first big kind of test as such is Telewet Pass here, just before CP1. You can see you get a bit more off-road there, but up until that point, you're pretty much on tarmac as you're climbing into the Atlas Mountains. So let's go back to map progress, and you can see this is the pass here, highlight on the bottom here, it's very hard to tell what's going on at this particular place. There's so many riders on the tracker, and also the first night doesn't really count for too much in the grand scheme of things. There's always people that go too hard. There's some people holding back. So it takes a day or so just to settle out. But starting at 6 p.m, most riders certainly in the front end of the race are not going to start. So one of the pre-race favourites, Alex McCormack, got to the first checkpoint first, as we kind of expected. And you can see there was a constant flow of riders through the night. I think I was there probably sort of 25th, 26th position, hour and a half, 2 hours behind the leads at this point. But I was riding my own kind of nice steady pace, and I kind of know, being my third time at this race, I know how to pace myself and what I need to do. And if we zoom in here, you can see I was kind of in around I can't even find where I am now. I was around Thomas Beret, this kind of area, and Thomas has done this again as well 3 times. He can normally roll the top 10. I was a little bit ahead here. That's quite nice, 2k ahead. So normally I know that Thomas is a good marker. If I'm in or around him, that's a good sign. Rolling back from the front, you can see all these riders scratched here. We'll find them further along. So coming out night 1, where's the front? So Alex leading, Benedek Boros. So he's Hungarian. He's actually this is his first ultra race. He's a mountain biker, got some pedigree. He's actually raced a friend of mine on the kind of cross country marathon scene for a number of years, so I know his kind of pedigree. Robin Gimpele, obviously a previous winner of this race, and Lucas Strittmatter there. You can see by their numbers, 315A and B. So they're riding as a pair. They were aiming to take the overall win out of everyone. So they were right up there on that first night. Anatol Niemi, again, young guy, I think he's 24, 25, showing some real talent. Tim de Wit, he's been podium or third place in TCR twice in a row. So again, super strong. Maxime Prieur and Flory Barat. Not too sure about those guys. I'm pretty sure one of them may be a GCN presenter for GCN, the French version. But again, strong guys. Sofian Sahili probably needs no introduction whatsoever. Won the first edition of the Atlas Mountain Race. Philippe Voulois, sorry for butchering names. He actually raced this in 2022, was right up there in the top 10 and ended up scratching with a double puncture on the Colonial Road. Again, super strong guy. Ben Chardon, I don't know an awful lot about him, but he was right up there in the mix overall. Drickus, of course, he was pushing Justinas last year pretty heavily, scratched with about 50k to go. He had a bit of a slow start over Telluride Pass. He's from Namibia, so there was actually snow and sub-freezing conditions on Telluride Pass, and that was the first time he'd ever seen snow. So he was struggling a little bit in the cold, but like I said, the first night doesn't really matter too much. I'm not sure much about Gregor, but he was up there on that first night. I mean, there's a lot of names that are up there in the first night and then soon disappear. Kevin Benkenstein, again, super strong. Keep that name in mind as we go further forward. He's from South Africa. And Marie Moldhauer, she was our leading woman. Very impressive. I rode with her a couple of times on that first night, and she basically just dropped me on the climbs. Very impressive. Especially seen as the first mountain bike kind of race. Masha Valig, she was up there as well. Second woman. Again, saw her riding. Came flying past me on the climbs. I suspect she might have been going a little bit too hard early on. But yeah, she was up there. And you can see the names go on and on. There's me, 172k. Thomas Beret, again, he was third last year. So yeah, you can roll back all the way through the field here, and it goes back 250 riders. So that's over Telluride Pass into the first morning, and the first sort of lights as such. I don't have much video for the night, but you can see this section here on the tracker. I'll show you on RideWithGPS. It'll be a little bit clearer. So this section across here, it's a bit of a kind of wide open track. Very hard to navigate, especially in the dark, so I was kind of glad that I got there during the daylight. And this is what you're looking at. You can see the snow on the peak, so we would have crossed over those snowy mountains in the background. Lots of wide open tracks. You can see there is a faint track, but if you get there in the dark, it can be a little bit more tricky to navigate. And then there's the Fable gas station, 24-hour gas station, just off track here on the route. And yeah, I ended up stopping here. Saw Dricus, saw a couple of other riders. Most riders stopped there, or there's another little restaurant up here. And by this point, you're riding kind of 12 hours plus non-stop. So it's a bit of a hit out. So you want a bit of a sit down. I had a freeze-dried porridge, I had an omelette, I had a coffee, knowing full well that the next section is this section here, 100 kilometers. It's the longest section without any resupply. You don't get any resupply until you get to it's Afra. 100k later, it's quite hot, and yeah, it's kind of, this is where it starts to tell. This is where you really realize what is going on, and you know what the Atlas Mountain Race is all about. So you start by crossing a river. There's not much water in the Atlas Mountain Race. The river, this is the lowest I've ever seen it. First year it was in flood, all the way up to the rocks in the background there. Last year it was probably kind of midway up my shins. This year you could just ride through it. It looks quite nice and pleasant, but I've seen it in all sorts. And then yeah, pushing through that first remote section, you can see the you know the riders the race is starting to get some structure. So this is the remote section the riders are just about to hit now. There's some big climbs in there, and by the end of this, we're starting to see, you know, that lead pack pull away. We're knowing who's kind of really going to be pushing for the lead, who's kind of going to be that sort of top 5 to top 10. And you can see the top 15 are spread over or the final top 15 are spread over that whole almost 100k. So things do spread out. So at the front, we've got Alex and Benedict and Seb Brewer. Ultimately, he was to scratch, but you see the three of them are pushing away, all within a kilometre or so. They would have been in sight for a lot of this time, really pushing each other. And then further back, Lucas and Robin, a bit off track there, sort of in that no man's land. And then we've got kind of our bunch behind. And you can see the names highlighted. Marie's in there, Dricus is in there, Kevin, Sofian was up there at this point, Anatol, all kind of in that kind of remote section. And yeah, this is progressing in towards the second night now. So I ended up sleeping before these long road climbs. You can see the riders just going up now. Some long road climbs before another 40-mile or so off-road section. I ended up sleeping near the bottom. It was really quite cold on the first night. I was in like kind of full waterproof trousers and top just to keep the heat in. So I came down towards Avra just towards sunset. Got the canyon descent down towards Avra or Afra. It was beautiful, best light I've ever seen. There's also been quite a lot of rain in the past few weeks, so you see there's quite a lot of like green plants and stuff, which was quite nice, bringing a bit of colour to the desert. It's not always like that; it can be quite barren. So yeah, this was the descent to Afra, and then I got a bit of resupply at Afra, and then to be honest, I wanted to sleep quite low, but I ended up making a small mistake with my directions. There's a bit of single track, must be just alongside this river here, and essentially I missed the single track and ended up in a clump of trees in a little clearing, and I thought, well, I might as well sleep there then. It was a bit earlier than I wanted. I slept 3.5 or so hours, bearing in mind we've missed a night's sleep by now, knowing that we were going up high in the morning. So 5,000 feet, you know, that's getting on for, you know, 1,600, 2,000 meters. So yeah, you've got to just take your chances when you can. The leaders, as you can see, pushed on. A lot of them slept about 2 hours. I know Alex slept 2 hours that first night, and that's where the gaps start going out. And then you've got the first sort of major resupply in Tasnacht here. So come that morning, Alex stops. You can see there, this is probably where he had his sleep, so he would really push through. And it closes up a little bit. Benedict gets ahead a bit, and there's a few other riders kind of just, you know, maybe not sleeping as much and taking advantage of the other people's sleeping. That first resupply, or that town, Tasnacht, is one of the bigger towns on the route, and this is kind of an example of the kind of food you can get. So I got here maybe 10 a.m. or so. Got some nice soup and some bread and an omelette. I mean, the soup is a luxury, you don't always get that, but this is kind of your typical kind of cafe. So yeah, you're going to be getting a lot of omelettes It's kind of the staple on the Atlas Mountain Race. You can get tagines and stuff, but it can take like half hour, 45 minutes, even an hour to get one of those, depending if they're ready or not. So omelettes do tend to be the food of choice. Not much in the way of calories. Just for reference, I probably lost almost 2 kilos over the course of the race, over the 4 days, and that was weighing myself when I was home after 4 days of sitting around eating. So it does take quite a hit on your body. Nutrition isn't one of the high points of the Atlas Mountain Race, and you can see at this point. So the riders are approaching CP2, which is over here. There's a long straight road section. So there is quite a bit of tarmac actually on the Atlas Mountain Race. The roads are pretty good. This is one of the major or the main highways. Just riding through the desert here, you can see those hills or the mountains right in the far distance. That's where the riders end up going. So you go along the road, and then you kind of get this wide open kind of deserty section. There are a couple of passes up there. You do hit 2,000 meters, but it's very gradual climbing. Even that main road's about 1,500, 1,600 meters. So altitude is also something you need to consider here. It does get quite warm, and the sun is very intense. When you're that high, the sun just does really burn through you. So I don't think I even took my arm warmers off, or my knee or my leg warmers off at this period. It was quite cold with the wind. Obviously there was snow on the high Atlas, and that's just chilling the wind. So yeah, it's not really shorts and jersey weather. But you can see on back on the tracker that Benedict took the lead here. So Benedict and Alex and Seb were really kind of to-ing and fro-ing at the moment. And I think Benedict may have got to the checkpoint first. So let's fast forward. And you see, yeah, Benedict to the checkpoint first. Maxime got there second. Then Alex would have seen Benedict at the checkpoint. And he basically jumps in there as well. So I don't know if Benedict stopped there or whether he got a meal. But you can see Alex then gets the lead. And then the chase pack come in. So by now, things are kind of starting to form. Drickus and Kevin are close together. Anatole's up there. Marie, she's our lead woman, and she's well inside the top 10. Like I said, an incredibly impressive rider, doing really, really well, and not too far off the actual lead itself. And then Thomas is in here. I was a little bit further down on the road, and then this sort of big sort of chase pack up here. They're all kind of in Tasnacht and on this long road section. I didn't see many people. I saw Thomas briefly at the checkpoint, but yeah, generally speaking, you don't see many people in this section. It's still too early to really see the big gaps forming. For me, the race doesn't really start until the Old Colonial Road is crossed. So you go through the CP2, and then you've got a long desert section before you hit the Old Colonial Road, which is, for me, a key point. So the desert road looks a little bit like this. As you can see, I was there at sunset. I've got an extra bottle of water on the back of my tail fin rack. I got dehydrated on this section a couple of times, so I wasn't taking any risks with water this time. But you can see it's kind of a false flat. It's nice to ride on some smooth road after quite a lot of rough tracks, but it is quite draggy too. But as I was saying, this is kind of we're hitting the crux of the race now. So we've got the Old Colonial Road, which will be over here. Where are we? Yeah, there's the Old Colonial Road. So this is the desert. You've got a bit of a plateau up and over and a dried out riverbed. I ended up sleeping down here somewhere. I didn't quite get the Old Colonial Road. But if you can push up and over the Colonial Road and someone gets stuck the other side, that's a good 4 or 5 hour gap. And that can really make a difference in the race overall. So let's have a little look at what the Colonial Road looks like. So basically it's an old military road, but it's been broken, so essentially it's not really drivable anymore. So it is quite rough. This is the descent. On the climb, it just means you're sort of battling the terrain the whole time. Not much up there. I got here obviously at dawn, so it wasn't too hot, but if you get stuck there in the middle of the day, it can be pretty hot, and it's quite easy to run out of water. I have run out of water there before, and it does suck. Also, if you get over the top too late at night, you miss a resupply on the town the other side. So you really do have to consider quite carefully your resupply options, how much food you're carrying, and also how much water. So you can see here, this is the old Colonial Road on the map where the cursor is. Let's just run the dots again, and you can see Alex has taken the lead in here. By this point, Seb has scratched, so Alex and Benedict are kind of neck and neck here, really. And you see Alex gets over the Colonial Road first, and then after the Colonial Road, there's a series of there's another basically long off-road climb, and then kind of a series of really fast rolling dirt roads. See, they're neck and neck. Everything closes up quite a bit, so you get quite a few riders on the same place. But obviously, once they get on the descent, they really can open up. So Alex is still leading. Looks like it's about, well, let's have a look at the Ks. Around about 10 Ks, which isn't too much in the grand scheme of things. But you can see they've really kind of gapped the chase pack here. And yeah, up to the next steep climb. It's a real tough climb, this one, quite loose at times, and then you're sort of closing in on CP3, so you can see there's two of them tracing at a very similar pace, and then behind we can ignore these scratch riders who sort of, some people cut off and get back in course. We've got Kevin and Drickus together fighting for third place, and then we've got sort of Anatole in no man's land, and then Marie, Tim DeWitt, Ben, Samuel, Thomas Bure, Patrick Sauerbach. They're all kind of in a bunch, sort of heading over the Colonial Road. And then myself, I ended up sleeping just before the town here, so I lose a bit of time. Marone here, I actually saw Marone the next morning, so he ended up catching up with me. So he caught me before the next climb after the old Colonial Road. This is the start of it, and you can see kind of the terrain we're looking at, quite remote. Not much in the way of main roads to get to these places. So yeah, Marone caught me, put a few minutes into me, into the probably 10, 15, 20 minutes into me, into the checkpoint over the course of the afternoon. And once you get up to the top of the climb there's these real fast desert roads. Again, you can see the kind of terrain. Really not much in terms of resupply. So yeah, if you don't carry enough water up here, you can really get fried. It is quite windy as well, so that kind of dries you out quite quickly. The Atlas, basically, this is where it starts to bite. You've done the hard sections, you've done the kind of the real rough sections, and if you're getting worn out, then this is the stage at which it really starts to bite. I've not mentioned Sofian Sahili. He was up there quite a lot, but he talking about kind of surviving these sections. He got a rock into his rear derailleur, totally smashed it off, and then he's basically unable to pedal anymore. So he had to scratch and hitch a ride back to the nearest town and bodge his bike together, and then rode to the finish, single speed. So yeah, you don't really want to be kind of taking too much for granted with the dots until you're around this area. This is where things really get sorted out. And you can see up front, I think basically Alex and Benedict are essentially neck and neck. Both get to the CP3 at the same point. It does look like Alex is resupplying a little bit quicker than Benedict. As I said, Benedict, this is his first ultra race, so Alex maybe has a little bit more experience in pushing it. Dricker's quick through there, Kevin quick through there, Anatole, very similar pace. Tim DeWitt. This is the section that's going to start suiting people like Tim. Got a long road climb up through here, and then essentially you really have broken the back of it once you get to CP3. Don't get me wrong, by any means it's not over, but this section there's a lot of tarmac before you cross the desert. So you can see on the RideWithGPS on the terrain here. This section across the middle, there's a bit of sand, but there's a lot of road here. Mostly road all the way through here. There's the old mule track and some dirt roads which aren't too tricky through this section. But generally speaking, you've got a lot of fairly steady, easy gravel compared to the rest of it. Long tarmac road climbs here. I don't have much video of this section because I rode it at night. But it certainly starts to feel a little bit easier. You're going through those resupplies just a little bit quicker, and the whole thing, you're kind of used to it by then, until you hit the sand. So the sand section is quite famous. Last year, I rode all of it like in about an hour. This year, I walked it in about three or so hours. You can see what it was like. Really soft, really dry. I think last year there was some rain in the weeks before, and a couple of cars had driven through, so there's some nice ruts. It was fairly solid, but this year I just couldn't get going. Some people like Alex and Anatol reckon they rode the whole lot. I think essentially they let all the pressure out their tyres, but even so, it would have been quite a physical effort just to push through that stuff. I didn't quite have the legs for it, and to be honest, I was on and off the bike, so I just ended up walking for probably 60% of it, along with most of the riders. I think this could have been a key moment during the race as well. Alex ended up riding it, so you can see it's this long straight section here. So if we watch the dots, I think Alex rode it, and Benedict ended up walking quite a lot of it, and I think this could have proved absolutely decisive. You can see that gap really just increasing there. Drickus closed in, and Benedict as well, and you can see that could have been the decisive kind of winning margin as they enter sort of the final climbs. You can see here nice and flat, and then you're going into these climbs here. It actually shows it as being off-road for a lot of this climb. It's actually tarmac. I think it's a relatively newly paved road, and then at the top you do get some off-road sections. So you can see from my video, top of the climb you run over a plateau, and this is kind of what you're looking at. Again, I got here at sunset. These guys would have been, well, probably 12 hours before me. I guess they would have been in the morning, if not more, by this point, as the race stretched out. So you've got a climb over the top, another little climb off-road, and then there's a descent that I did in the night. So you can see it looks darker on the video than it was. The moon was pretty incredible over the course of the race. A lot of the times on the climbs I just turned my lights off because you could see perfectly clearly by moonlight, and I found it was a little bit more a little easier on the eyes. So yeah, over that section, and then there's a couple of road sections, and then what they call the Stelvio, which where are we? I've lost the front of the race again. So the Stelvio is the last kind of big climb. You can see on the tarmac section here, and Alex is just holding that lead by this point. Drickus and Kevin are pretty close. Anatol's kind of is there or thereabouts, but he seems to be fading off a bit. And then you hit the coast road, and that's where you kind of know that the race is almost done. About 60 miles, 100k up the coast, predominantly road, a little bit of gravel, and you can see that the dots are speeding up quite substantially there. Let's just zoom in and see what's happening in the race over that Stelvio climb. So Drickus and Kevin are together, Anatol by himself. By this point, Robin and Lucas have scratched. Lucas basically had Sherman's neck, is when your neck muscles get so fatigued, your head kind of droops down. So they ended up scratching. Thomas Beret just did the classic Thomas move and didn't sleep. Got himself up into the top 10. By this point, Marone's done similar. He's ridden through the group a bit. Samuel's up there. Marie is still having an absolutely amazing ride, considering this is her first off-road race, or proper off-road, like mountain bike style race. She's absolutely smashed it. And she's well inside the top 10 and pushing all the guys and probably upsetting a few guys as well, which is quite amusing. Tim DeVitt, he was still riding at this point, but I think he scratched around here. Again, he had that Sherman next issue. Basically, I think he was riding a drop bar bike, and it just puts a lot of strain on your neck, and over time that can just fatigue, and you can't hold your head up any longer. There's me in the desert going for a walk. By this point, I was on the edge of the top 10. I think I was about 10th. Managed to overtake Ben in the desert here. He was having a bit of a nightmare with his tyre. I passed him with his tyre off. And then there's Michael, Lucas, Patrick. Joachim was still up there at this point. And they're all kind of, they're not too far back on this road section. So when we got into the desert, they closed up pretty quick. So if I put the dots on, you can see as you start walking, everyone gets compressed into quite a close area. So yeah, as always on the Atlas, quite the kind of race into the finish. By this point, Megan Hakkinen, I've not really mentioned her very much, but she's just been riding a strong, steady race. I mean, she's been fastest woman on Tour Divide and top 10 overall. She's got the endurance in her legs. I think she might have been a little bit caught out by quite how rocky and rough it was. I think she admitted that herself after, but still riding really strong into second place in the women's race. And Rachel Nolan had worked herself into third. By this point, the gaps are quite substantial in the women's race, so the podium looked fairly settled. But in that top 10, as I said, everything to play for as the riders head on to the coast. So let's just show a quick video of that coast road, and then we'll watch the finish with Alex coming into the finish line. This is the coast road. As you can see, I've got their first light. I'm absolutely nailed by this point, so it's nice to ride on the tarmac for a little bit. However, like most coast roads, it's not exactly flat. I was lucky, I got quite a nice tailwind till about midday, and then it switched, and I finished the last couple of hours into an absolutely block headwind, which really sucks. I felt sorry for some of the riders behind me who didn't get the benefit of having any tailwind. They just got the headwind all the way. And then you got one last gravel section, just through the trees, nice and easy, nice and simple, before kind of the final 20 miles or so on the tarmac into Azuria. So let's just run the final of this race now. So as you can see, Alex got there first. Benedict about an hour behind. So Alex took a big win here. It's a big one for Alex. He's a very big talent. Kevin and Dorikas, they came in joint third. Essentially, they caught each other and they basically just tried to destroy each other. I think they had an agreement that the best man would win. But then they got to the point where they just couldn't drop each other. So they rolled in rather than try and sprint in the traffic. And, you know, it's pretty dangerous trying to ride like that aggressively in cars and stuff in the finish. They made a gentleman's agreement as such, and they crossed the line together. Really nice to see two African riders really really sort of enjoying the race, and they're both ferocious competitors. Anatole rode in sort of by himself, fairly relaxed finish for him. See Robin and Lucas, they just rode to the finish, but they're obviously out of the race. Thomas Beret, he again rode strong. He just doesn't sleep. Another top 10 for him, so good work for him. So it looks like Samuel got him just at the finish there, and then Marie. What a strong ride from Marie. It's so impressive to see her take that win. First place in the women, and I think she was 8th overall. She's a very, very talented woman, so really great to see that. And then kind of the rest of that chase pack, I decided to have a sleep for 2 hours, so I ended up just sliding out of the top 10, kind of the story of my life at the moment. It seemed to be going backwards every time, but it did mean I got a quite chilled morning riding in. I just couldn't stay awake at the end there. And then Megan Hakkinen, she rolled in probably an hour or so after me. Christian came in, he's a multi-time finisher. And you can see, you know, there's then the gradual flow of riders coming in over the next few days. So yeah, that's pretty much that Atlas Mountain race. Bit of a rambling report there for you. But you know, it's good to see, to watch it back from personal kind of just to kind of piece together what happens, and also hopefully it's useful to have a bit of insight. Obviously I was there at the finish. I chatted to a lot of riders, got a bit of info about how they got on, how they felt, and obviously put my video to it. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you're still watching this, congratulations. That means you're pretty much qualified to be able to have the endurance to take on the Atlas Mountain race. I've got a load more videos coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do a bit of a kit check, unload my bike packing bags after the Atlas, and also do a bit of a race video, and I'll do a bit of a video just looking at some of the bikes that we used for this event. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're into this stuff. If you're watching by now, at the end here, you probably already have subscribed. So yeah, don't unsubscribe if you're bored of it. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.